What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another episode of the Smark Moment Smack Talk podcast. I'm your host, as always, Tony Mango, and this is kind of a pay-per-view-point edition, but kind of not. The reason why is because it's not necessarily a pay-per-view, it's not necessarily even an event, it's the finale of a TV show, the Mixed Match Challenge. What I'm going to be doing here is talking about the finals themselves that just happened not that long ago, and of course the tournament as a whole, and an entire recap of any of my thoughts that I've got going on in my brain right now. Obviously, this is not the main event of the week for Smack Talk because we have four much more important things coming up later on. Predictions and post shows for NXT TakeOver New Orleans and for WrestleMania 34. But because this is a rather important thing, and because it was something that on a regular week it would have been the main event, I figured I can't really skip it. Although that seems to be the general idea when it comes to this, is skip it. Before I get into just bashing it with like some specifics and stuff, I just want to say this was a Facebook Watch show. It was a random tournament, and it was an idea that I don't necessarily fault WWE for doing, but I think that it sucked. So you're not going to hear many positives about this on my end, and if you are clicking on this because you wanted to hear a bunch of, pros and nothing on the cons list, you're going to be disappointed. But I'm going to try to be fair for everything, just the way I normally am. I mean, I'll give credit where credit's due, and I'll shit on anything that needs to be shit on. So, let's start with the very beginning. This was something that originally, Mixed Match Challenge was something that I had just reported on the hot tags as something that they had trademarked. I didn't have a clue what it was. I thought maybe it was a new gimmick match. Maybe it was something on the network. Well, it ended up being Facebook Watch. So the idea behind this was twofold. Number one, get something on Facebook Watch to see if that is a noteworthy enough platform and has enough of an audience to actually, look at some different things in the future for WWE. Maybe you want to do something like, instead of airing main event on Hulu, maybe you want to air it live before Raw or something like that on Facebook. Maybe you want to look into Facebook as another alternative for WWE to take Raw and Smackdown, and they can argue that against the USA Network and against Fox and whatnot. Maybe they just want to try it out because what the hell, let's see what's happening. Maybe they even got paid by Facebook to do this. I don't really know all the 100% of the details, but it's worth trying something out because you never really know. Tout was something that they tried out. They thought maybe that would work. It didn't, so they abandoned it. Not going to do it anymore. Facebook Watch doesn't seem like it's necessarily going to work out all that much, so I'm assuming that we're not going to get anything there either. One of the reasons why I say that is because the viewership just wasn't there. You know what? I'll come back to this point a little bit later on. We're talking about the very beginning of this right now. The very beginning of this, they announced that they're going to do the Facebook Watch show is going to be the Mixed Match Challenge, and it's going to be a man and a woman, and it's going to be Raw versus Smackdown, or Raw versus Raw, depending on how the brackets work, and it's going to take 12 weeks, and it's going to culminate right before WrestleMania. But most importantly, it's going to be for charity. So, the two major things here, Facebook Watch and charity. The charity organizations are all going to get $10,000 no matter what, and the winning organization is going to get $100,000. So right off the bat, I was very confused because I thought to myself, how can you do something where the winning charity is going to get money on a scripted show? Because it just seems strange. It's an odd thing to do, to say, here are a bunch of charities. You're going to sign up to be sponsored in a way by a WWE show, and we're going to give you all $10,000, but we're going to give one of you $100,000, but you're not going to know for 12 weeks unless they already knew this ahead of time, which also kind of makes me think, did they just have this thing in mind of Rescue Dogs Rock, and they decided, well, we don't want to just have Rescue Dogs Rock be, we give $100,000 to them for nothing. Let's try to get something out of this, and let's try to apply that elsewhere. Then they realized they can't have that with only one tournament well, not one tournament, with one charity per tournament, that kind of a thing. So they needed to add more charities, and then they made 10,000 because they can't make it 5,000 or 1,000. You know, it's a weird situation like that. But it's good that charities get money. Like, you know, I'm never going to be opposed to that 100% because it's a charitable thing to do. That's the whole point of the word charity. So I can't fault WWE for giving money out like that. It makes them look good. The charities get more money on their end. I'm a little bit skeptical about charities all the time. I always think that there's like a little bit of bullshit and red tape and, you know, people skimming off the top and stuff like that. But if you want to try to be a better person, you just assume that that's maybe not necessarily the case. You try to give people the benefit of the doubt, and you just give whatever you can give. WWE obviously can give a little bit more than that, but we're not going to, like, you know, bankrupt WWE just to give money to Hire Heroes USA or something. But the other charities that were listed here, Rescue Dogs Rock were the winning team. Girl Up was the runner-up, but they'd only get the 10,000 anyway. We also have Susan G. Komen, Connor's Cure. So those two are two that WWE is very, very familiar with. The AmeriCares, don't even know what that is. Special Olympics, everybody knows what that is. Hire Heroes USA, as I just mentioned a minute ago, no idea what that is necessarily. Kaboom, no idea. Boys and Girls, blah, 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 blah. Boys and Girls Club of America, Global Citizen, UNICEF, and Make-A-Wish. Make-A-Wish is another one that WWE is very, very much into. So I would have thought right off the bat, I'm saying that a lot, aren't I? Is that going to be my new boils down to, is right off the bat? I would have thought from the very beginning that Make-A-Wish, Connor's Cure, or Susan G. Komen would have been the two that would, the three that would have stood out. My God, I'm tired. You know, this is a long-ass week for wrestling stuff, and I just watched 3.5 hours of wrestling or so, did 4 hours of wrestling last night, that kind of thing. All these articles and all that, my brain's fried. Might have to watch something like Jumanji 2 just to kind of like put on something dumb. Anyway, Make-A-Wish, Connor's Cure, and Susan G. Komen. There are the three that WWE has the most significant ties to. Special Olympics probably be number 4, I think, maybe. That was something that I thought, oh, well, they're just going to give this to one of those. And when I started to look at the teams, then I started to go, well, wait a minute. Asuka's on a team, and it's just Rescue Dogs Rock. If they say that this doesn't count for her streak, Asuka is going to lose. If they say it does count, Asuka can't lose, because they're not going to have her lose during this thing. You know, nobody's paying attention to this fucking thing. So that kind of killed a good portion of this tournament, because as soon as they mentioned that it was, yes, her streak is on the line, if she loses, she loses, then it became, okay, I guess Rescue Dogs Rock wins. Because they're not going to have her lose right before WrestleMania. It's just stupid. Wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. That killed some of the portion of that. It was still kind of interesting to see who they would end up facing in the finals, because we also had something like the second chance vote to get back into the tournament. And that, unfortunately, went to one of my least favorite teams here. Breaking down the teams, we had, some of them had team names, some of them didn't. Mostly because the ones that didn't weren't supposed to go anywhere as they were. Apollo and Nia Jax, they had nothing going on for them. The whole point was supposed to be Nia Jax not really wanting to be teaming with Apollo, and eventually she did, and then they lost. I still have to say, I think that this was all supposed to be an Enzo Amore and Nia Jax kind of thing. And I wrote up something about that on the wrestling news. A bunch of people were like really fucking hated it for some reason. I don't know why. But that is still my idea of what I thought that they were going to be going for in the future. And I think that that's still necessarily, that probably would have been the case. If we would have had them teaming up, I think that Susan G. Komen would have gone further, and the bracket would have been a little bit different, because they started off and they ended up losing to, I just had it on my screen a second ago and I lost it. They lost to the Road Warriors, and the Road Warriors, I think, would have been semifinalists. I think that Apollo and Nia Jax, or, well, in that scenario, Enzo and Nia Jax probably would have beaten, like, Elias and Bayley or something like that. I don't know. What ifs? That's what we're talking about here. Apollo and Nia Jax did nothing for me. Braun Strowman and Alexa Bliss, though, Team Little Big, they were fun. They were probably the most fun tag team, I think, because we had a little bit of like a romance going on between the two. And I liked the idea of pretty much the shortest person on the roster and the tallest person on the roster standing next to each other. And that was some fun moments there. I liked Strowman kind of having a soft spot for Alexa, and they had some funny little spots. Elias and Bayley had nothing. They were just bland as all hell. And admittedly, Finn Balor and Sasha Banks, the Boss Club, they were bland too. Sasha Banks has the attitude, and she's got the character, although she's still... I hate when she cuts her promos and everything's just... I'm going to laugh and look to the side and then turn back and then talk about the other thing. I hate that so much. Balor has no fucking personality, and that translated here too, because it was just kind of like, hey, we're teaming. We're baby faces, kind of douches sometimes, but we're baby faces, so can you cheer for us? Did nothing for me. Goldust and Mandy Rose wasn't originally supposed to be a team. It was supposed to be Goldust and Alicia Fox, and Alicia Fox ended up breaking her ass. Or she broke a tailbone, but that's a nice way to put it, Tony. Good job there. Mandy Rose steps in, and I actually think that Mandy Rose could have been a potentially better option in the grand scheme of things. She needed a little bit more experience, and working with Goldust, even for one match, maybe helped her out a little bit. Alicia Fox and Goldust could have been fun if they were like the crazy people or something, but I don't like that whole crazy Goldust character as much, so I'm kind of glad we didn't get that. Miz and Asuka, they won. Team awe-ska, funny name. I liked the idea of, there's that one gif now, it's pretty much a gif, where Asuka is looking at the Miz and she just gives him the thumbs up. That's pretty much one of the best things that happened out of this Mixed Match Challenge. On the Smackdown side of things, we had Big E and Carmella. They could have been a fun team, but they really didn't get a chance to do anything. The Robe Warriors of Bobby Roode and Charlotte Flair. Love the name. Didn't really like the team too much. They were one of the best ones, but they weren't one of the best ones because of anything great. They were just in the field with a lot of bad teams. Kind of liked the idea that there was maybe a little bit of a romance thing going on, but Strowman and Alexa Bliss did it better. And Bobby Roode cannot woo, man. Woo! This doesn't work out right. You gotta go woo! You gotta get a little bit of, pizzazz behind it, Jimmy Uso and Naomi and Rusev and Lana. No team name for Uso and Naomi. I guess it's just the Usos or the Fatus. And Ravishing Rusev Day. Decent enough name. I am disappointed that we didn't get to see Rusev and Lana against Jimmy Uso and Naomi, because I think that it would have been kind of interesting to see two married couples fight. And I don't know if that's necessarily ever been a case in WWE, if they've ever been able to do that in the past. Because we've had couples fight, but we haven't had necessarily real married couples fight that I can remember. What are we last on? The Ginger Snaps, Sami Zayn and Becky Lynch. I don't really know what the snapping necessarily was from, but they're both ginger, so... Well, technically, she really isn't, right? I don't think so. Yeah, it was okay. There was a fun little moment with them in their match where, like, if you check out the mic'd up, that was kind of funny. But the team didn't really do all that much for me. And man, if you're talking about teams that don't do much for me, Shinsuke, Nakamura, and Natalya, woo, that might have been the worst team out of all of them. So that was not good at all. No team name for them. They didn't need it. And basically, this tournament was, if you enjoyed the teams, you might want to enjoy the tournament. But if you didn't, there's no reason for you to watch. And you're going to find out which charity wins at the end of it anyway. There's plenty of wrestling, so it's not like you are going to lose out on your wrestling fix for that week. And it's just not something that was really all that worth checking out. Beth Phoenix on the commentary team was not really anything too great. I got sick and fucking tired of that theme song. Now give it up, I really, really hated that by the end of this thing. Midway through this, if I'm really going to be honest about that. And I don't blame the people that didn't tune in, because I watch this every single time because it's part of my job. I am reporting for multiple websites. I'm saying what's happening on there, making a little bit of money, not anything really all that much, but it's still a little bit. And if I don't watch it, then I'm not as informed to be able to report on things in the future. If I'm talking about a WrestleMania article and I want to mention the idea that Asuka just beat Charlotte Flair in the Mixed Match Challenge, I want to have the context to be able to do that. It's called homework. It's called research. It's called doing your damn job, even though you don't really want to do it. This is kind of the equivalent of not wanting to sign paperwork and stuff like that. It was a little bit tough to get through sometimes, and I'm not going to be like, oh man, sitting down and reporting on a wrestling show for half an hour is really the equivalent of like working the terrible beat as a cop or something like that. It's not the case, but it still wasn't all that fun. And when you look at the viewers, this started out, the premiere was 135,600 people watching. Dropped down the very next week to 91.9. So they lost 40,000 people in 1 week. And that's because they checked out the first episode and they went, oh, this is it? I don't need to watch this shit. And it's still only 100,000 people watching it. That's really not all that great. So the third week dropped even more because I guess people that were tuning in the second week said, maybe I'll give it another week as a chance. And then they turned out, no, it's not going to end up being any better. So it went from 135.6 to 91.9. Third week was 62.4. We had a little bit of upswing to the 70s for the next couple of weeks, dropped back down to the 60s, went a little bit up again to 80s and 93.7 being the second highest that they had. Last week, 65.6. So you would think that it would be the premiere is the highest, and either the follow-up is the second highest, or something close to that, and then it would just either trail down, or that it would go up, or, whatever the case may be, like going up towards the end because people are actually interested. But it seems like it's just based off of who is competing. And that in itself is something that I think proves that WWE needs to look at their talent. They need to see that some people are more popular, and they know this to a certain extent too. But if you were to put up, say, the Braun Strowmans, you get a little bit more interest. Because week 10, the second highest one was the Miz and Asuka against Braun Strowman and Alexa Bliss. That speaks volumes. And if you look at the week before that, that had 81.2. That was Rusev and Lana against the Road Warriors. The worst week out of all of them, week 7, that one was Finn Balor and Sasha Banks against the Miz and Asuka. And, they're popular. Like, there's no denying that they're popular. But I think that week 7 is just like, all right, we're midway through, and we don't really necessarily care too much to tune this in. The third week, that's a real good indicator of how sometimes this might just not necessarily be about the people, because Braun Strowman and Alexa Bliss were in that one, facing Sami Zayn and Becky Lynch. So you look at your people, you try to see who is the most entertaining, but then you look at the platform too. And if you were to compare, say, week 3 with Strowman and Alexa Bliss, and week 8 with Strowman and Alexa Bliss, and week 10, there's a difference. Week 3 is 62.4, week 8 is 88.5, and week 10 is 93.7. So there's it's a weird kind of scenario, but I think that what you can really take away from this is people didn't care. More people would have tuned in if this was the type of thing that they necessarily cared about. And I think that this is applicable to NXT, and I think it's applicable to Smackdown, and I think it's very, very applicable to 205 Live, because people don't tune into 205 Live. And it sucks because 205 Live is pretty good, but they don't necessarily give them a reason to tune in. And the Mixed Match Challenge is another one of those things where if you care about the charity stuff, you tune in. If not, you don't care, because it has no implications whatsoever for the big names, for the WWE or the Universal Championship or any of the other kind of stuff like that. There's just no influence at all. So I think that this is something that if they do a second one of these, it's going to fail. And the only thing that could save it is if they bring in people that are attractions. If you have, for instance, and this is not going to happen, so don't even think of it as like, well, maybe. No, it's not going to happen. If you were to have a team of like The Rock and Trish Stratus, and you have, say, Hulk Hogan and, I don't know, fucking, you pick one, Lacey Evans, and you've got like Undertaker and Michelle McCool and all that, and John Cena and Nikki Bella, you know, a team that would have made perfect sense. And by the time you get around here, the Miz and Maurice are teaming up, and Mike Kanellis and Maria Kanellis. Then you start tapping into that E-network type of thing, and also the legends, and also premier attractions like The Rock and Trish Stratus, and, you know, whoever you can bring into the mix. Then people might tune in. But just pairing up Elias and Bayley, nobody's going to care. Pairing up Sami Zayn and Becky Lynch, or Nakamura and Natalya, what do we give a shit about? We don't. And that's why we don't tune in. Charity stuff is good. I hope that this is not a thing. I hope that not only is it not a thing as far as the Mixed Match Challenge, but I also hope that Facebook Watch is not a thing, because Facebook Watch sucked. I never once got a notification that told me that they were airing, even though I had said that I wanted the notifications for my schedule, and I checked it every single time. Never got a notification on Facebook about that. I think that the quality of the video was worse than normal. I didn't like seeing all the stupid things flying around my screen of people talking. I don't care what anybody else says. The whole point of me watching this is to watch it, not to see people go, oh, heart icon, you know, whatever the fuck that is. Little angry emoji. It's just not a platform for WWE. It's kind of like, what are you going to do? You're going to broadcast on Periscope? Why? You know, Periscope could be good for like the social media lounge. Like, that could be good, but Facebook Watch and that kind of thing, that's not for an actual show. And I think that this rules out the idea of Facebook Watch being a platform that they would really look into in the future. I think that Facebook Watch itself is under a lot of crap. Facebook itself has a lot of problems with the whole privacy issues going on right now, and WWE is going to just abandon them. They should, and I don't see anything positive coming out of that necessarily. So, would I recommend anything with this? You know, should you go back and check it out if you haven't? No. Check out the mic'd up things, because those can be kind of fun. And between all the episodes of those, you're probably, making like a half an hour or something like that out of your time. And that's it. You know, you don't need to watch any of the matches. None of them were really good. You don't really need to check out anything as far as continuity for WrestleMania. You don't need to know anything for, like, character-wise. It's just kind of a waste. And I wasted a lot of time on it. So that's pretty annoying. But it could have been worse, you know. So I think that this was a major fail. I commend WWE for trying, at the very least, because you never know if you're going to succeed unless you try. And you always fail if you don't. And it was worth attempting to do something at the very least that is outside the box. Having said that, now we know it's not a success. Don't ever do it again. But I want to know what you guys had to say. Were you following the Mixed Match Challenge? What did you think about it? What do you think about the idea that the Miz and Asuka won? You know, were you rooting for anybody in particular instead? What do you think about the finals themselves? Because finals, you know, they were just a match. It's the same as everything else. And anything else you got in mind, drop them in the comments section below on YouTube, or if you're listening to this on iTunes or Stitcher, then just drop them in the comments section of the website post itself. And I mentioned before that our main events are going to be coming up later on this week. We've got WrestleMania predictions coming up next. Following that is going to be NXT TakeOver New Orleans predictions, then the NXT TakeOver New Orleans post-show, and then the WrestleMania post-show. And then I'm going to need to fucking sleep. That's what I'm going to need to do. So stay tuned for all that other kind of stuff coming your way, everybody. And to make sure that you are aware of when we post those videos, hit the subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications on YouTube. You could also follow us on Facebook and Twitter at SmarkOutMoment. Buy some t-shirts over at our TeePublic and Redbubble shops. And follow the website for all the articles that are on the website. Go to fanboysanonymous.com for anything that is fanboys related, you know, the latest 6 Flicks picks, stuff about the Suicide Squad Hell to Pay. I just posted that up. Ready Player One review. Avengers is coming up. So that's not going to be this week, but Avengers Infinity War, man. Fucking pumped. And I will see you when I see everybody, whenever I see you next, whenever we end up posting and recording that WrestleMania predictions post. Thanks for listening to this, everybody. This has been another Smark Out moment, and I'm being counted out.